Hello, all. It's an honor to be joining you today. Right now, I'm speaking to you from our WeWork headquarters in New York City. I'm very happy to be back in the office with my colleagues, but also I wishing I could be with you in person. But with all the recent news about the vaccines, hopefully one day we will all be together again. As 2020 comes to an end and we begin to look back at the year, it would be remiss not to acknowledge the obvious. COVID 19 has certainly provided all of us with a level of unexpected adversity, both personally and professionally, myself included. But from the very start of my career, I've always found that adversity creates opportunity, opportunity that you thought you'd never have. Everyone's journey incorporates some form of adversity. It's how we grow, become stronger, and better. Growing up in India, I had opportunities that afforded me. I went to Cathedral. I graduated in 1977. Education in England being one of the first moments of adversity in life because of the high level of discrimination against Indians in Britain at the time. This discrimination towards Indian was a turning point. Didn't feel that I had the mental resilience to be educated in England. So I went back to India, and my father told me I was on my own in getting to America, and I would have to figure out my own future as it relates to education in America. This is where the Rotary Club comes in. I applied for a Rotary exchange program to go to America. I was selected. I went to a little town in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, to attend public school and live with three host families. I graduated in 1979 from high school, and it was time to go to university. I applied to several universities to go and study engineering. Once again, my father asked me to go ahead and find my own path. Once again, the Rotary Club came to my rescue, and they provided me the funds to pay for my tuition. I had to fend for myself for room and board, and thereby my first job was actually a dishwasher. It's a job I detested. Being a dishwasher in a cafeteria was no fun for a private school kid who came from Cathedral. However, I continued and persevered, and my second job was a cashier. This was all in freshman year. In sophomore year, I graduated to becoming a math tutor. And math tutoring took me through all the way to graduation. In 1983, I graduated, but there's a funny story in between 1979 and 83. In 1980, my father reaches out to me and says there is a young friend whose son is also joining Stevens, the institute I went to study. He is going to be doing 2 degrees in 4 years, and I should persevere the same. It was not the era of mobile phones. It was an era of telegrams and personal phones. And so it was easy to avoid him for a while. However, the Indian in me created a guilt complex. Based on the guilt complex, I decided to go pursue the 2 degrees in 4 years. And you could get the second degree for free, okay, if you had a certain GPA. In 1983, I graduated with 2 degrees in 4 years. And the irony is the young man, okay, who claimed to have done 2 degrees in 4 years just about graduated with a 2.0 grade point average. This is the irony of life. Nevertheless, I did return home in 1983 to work for my father, who was in the construction business. In 1984, I returned back to the United States to do a second master's degree. Graduating in 1986, I went to work for a construction management company in Washington, D.C. I worked on wastewater treatment plants, public housing projects, the Big Dig in Boston, and Preservation Park, which is a historical renovation in Oakland, California. Also in 1986, I bought a Nissan Sentra for $3,500, pretty excited to getting my first real car. In the same year, I felt I had real estate in my blood. I went to see an apartment in Alexandria, Virginia. It cost $55,000. I wanted to buy it. I had no money. I looked at the car, looked at the apartment, and decided it was best for me to sell the car and buy the apartment. I sold the car for $3,500. I bought a Volkswagen Rabbit diesel, where actually some of you may not really appreciate that in the winter, the way you kept your car warm was actually heat coming from the engine, so it was fumes of petrol. Nevertheless, it's what I could afford. Having $2,900 in the bank, I needed about $3,200 to buy the apartment because the FHA, the Federal Housing Agency, provided a 95% financing on the mortgage. So with $2,750 down and $400-500 of closing costs, I bought the apartment with the $2,900 I had from the car sale and borrowing about $300 at 18% interest from the Visa credit card. Actually, I'm not sure it was Visa or MasterCard, but it was a credit card. Having this apartment 18 months later, sold it for $77,500. Now remember, I had 2 master's degrees. I was making $25,000 a year. And to score with making an over $20,000 profit was a victory. I bought a house in Woodbridge, Virginia. I sold a house in Woodbridge, Virginia, made about $10,000. And I said to myself, this real estate is pretty good. In 1989, I decided to go pursue a career in real estate. I applied for jobs. I'm not sure I really much cared whether it was shopping centers, hotel, residential, office. I just wanted a job in the field of real estate. And a gentleman offered me a job in Staten Island, New York to design shopping centers. So I got my start in real estate from the ground up, truly from the ground up. I pivoted many times in my life from 1989 to 1994 from engineering, design, construction, leasing, capital markets, and finally at the young age of 32 became president of this small company. I attempted to buy this small company in 1994, but it was not meant to be. I decided at that time, maybe I should be an entrepreneur. I did build my first shopping center, which I still own 20% of on Staten Island, New York. I was approached by a gentleman called Bruce Ratner, who was the past Commissioner of Consumer Affairs for New York City, whose family was in the real estate business, and the company's name was Forest City. He had started a division in New York called Forest City Ratner. He wanted to build a slew of shopping centers in the boroughs of New York City. He had no experience in the shopping center industry. His experience was founded in office buildings. So it was a startup. I said, okay, Bruce, I'll do it for you for 1 year. I really enjoyed Bruce. He was a wonderful human being. And I stayed with him for 8 years. In 2002, I left because at the time I wanted to be the president or CEO of a company. And Bruce felt that it was not the right time for me. Steve Roth of Vornado Realty Trust gave me the opportunity. Again, it was to turn around his shopping center portfolio. I became president of his retail platform. And we were able to turn the business around and grow it very nicely over a span of 8 years. In 2010, I read my name in the Wall Street Journal, and it essentially says one of 5 candidates to be CEO of GGP, General Growth Properties. It was the second largest shopping center company in the world. It had filed for bankruptcy. It filed for bankruptcy. It had good assets, good people, but a really bad capital structure. With the help of Blackstone, Brookfield, Fairhome, whose principal is Bruce Berkowitz, and Pershing Square, whose principal is Bill Ackman, we were able to recapitalize GGP and take it out of bankruptcy. This was truly my first true turnaround, although in hindsight, I had done a turnaround and a startup prior to this job. But those I felt were really my duty to do something that I was hired to do. From 2010 to 2020, we had a great run. I might add, not without fits and falls. I gave earnings calls. I watched the stock drop, but I learned, and it was a great run. In 2018, we sold the business to Brookfield. In 2020, Jan 31st was my last day at GGP, at which moment in time I said I would go to the beach, although in me, I had one more gig. Least did I know that I would become CEO of WeWork in February to do one more turnaround. And of course, there's the Black Swan event, COVID-19 strikes. It teaches you how to be resilient, to be optimistic, to pivot, and to never lose sight. The glass is always half full. And I learned it all because of Rotary. Thank you.